Welcome back for another episode of Budget Talks. I'm here with our Comptroller Treasurer, Corey Laddick. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
So you, arguably, are the most important person when it comes to the city budget. Tell us a little bit about what the Comptroller Treasurer's Office does.
Well, the Comptroller Treasurers Office is responsible for managing the financial and business affairs of the city. So what we do is we protect the financial interests of the city. We ensure that information is accurate so that we can provide information to decision makers so that they can make good decisions, and ensure the accountability to the public, that their tax dollars are spent wisely and that everything is appropriate, and that we're following the budget that was adopted by council.
Okay, and you guys do a lot more than just send out tax bills and collect tax money. What are some of the other services that you provide the community?
So, well, we're also responsible for selling dog and cat licenses. So when you get your tax bill, it's also important to come in and license any dogs or cats that you have, and be sure to bring a rabies certificate because we'll need that. We also sell bulk item tags. So if you have a large item that you'd like picked up by
like
the
a
city.
sofa or a coffee table,
Yes.
entertainment center, something that can't fit in your garbage bin.
Yes,
right? Okay.
Exactly. And one item to note with that is we can't take any appliances. So mainly large furniture, things like that don't have mechanical components.
Okay. And you also handle all the payroll for the city. That comes through your office as well, right?
Yes. Yep. We do handle all the payroll. We also handle the associated tax reporting, all the different contributions that need to be made to the state pension plan, and everything that goes along with payroll and sending out W-2s to employees at the end of the year. So.
Wow. That's quite a lot, and most people don't probably understand that. Talk a bit about, because everybody knows, tax dollars, right? That's what they think the city operates on, but it's really a percentage of our budget that comes from property taxes. What other sources of revenue does the city have?
So property taxes make up 50% of the operating budget. So you're correct that there are some other key sources of revenue. The second largest source is state aid. That makes up 27% of the general fund operating budget. And then we also get a payment from the county for providing countywide EMS services. That's another 10% of the operating budget. And then the remaining 13% is a variety of different revenues, everything from investment income to permit revenues.
When we lease our park facilities for birthday parties, weddings, what have you, that provides some income. We get paid from athletic groups that use Community Stadium, for example, or KB Willett Arena. Permits, you mentioned that. Parking enforcement covers some of that revenue, and there's probably a few other things too that come through municipal court that the city gets as a really small piece. But state aid is one that most people don't quite understand. So we know there's a variety of different aid programs out there, from grants and shared revenue and all that stuff, payment in lieu of taxes. The university contributes something through that program rather than paying taxes. Talk a little bit about what the different types of state aid are.
Sure. The biggest one is shared revenue, and that's actually a program that goes all the way back to the early 1900s and was actually the reason why the state of Wisconsin adopted an income tax, was in order to take some of that burden off of property taxpayers. The state adopted the income tax and then made shared revenue payments to the municipalities, so that they had another source of revenue. So that's the biggest one. Unfortunately, it has not been going up at all in recent years. In past years, it's actually been cut. So that is a concern, that as that program has diminished somewhat, unfortunately, that does shift some of that burden then onto the property taxpayer. Another very large source of revenue is general transportation aid, and that is based on what we spend every year on transportation. The state reimburses us about 16% of what we spend for that purpose. So, and that's helpful, definitely gives us an incentive to spend more money on roads, and helps defray some of that cost. And that's actually funded when you fill up your tank and you're paying gas tax or you're licensing your vehicle. Part of that money goes to the state transportation fund, and then we get some of that in general transportation aid.
Okay. And, it's important to note that some of the things that are not included in city revenue are the sales tax. There's a 0.5% county sales tax.
Yes.
We get none of that. That's county. And the wheel tax. I know we get blamed for that quite a bit, but the city has nothing to do with the wheel tax. That's a county tax, and we don't see a dime of that money. So it's important to know that too, because I think people have generally a misconception of where that particular money goes. So some of the things that we spend money on, each one of these segments covers a different department. Talk a little bit about what expenses your department has specifically to your department, and then let's talk about and let everybody know how we start formulating the budget and walk us through that process.
Sure. So my department, it's primarily salaries. Since we are an administrative department, that's the biggest component of our budget. We also have a small budget for training and education, which I think is important. We always want to develop our employees, and typically we see very good return on investment for having the proper financial training, allowing the staff to exchange ideas with other communities. And then we also do spend a fairly significant amount on auditing as well. We do have an independent auditor that comes in. They scrutinize us very closely. They go through everything. They basically go through everything that we did for a 1-year period of time and make sure that everything is correct. They're always very diligent at pointing out any mistakes. So you can certainly have confidence that our department is very heavily scrutinized and vetted as it should be,
right,
based on the amount of money that we have flowing through our department. And then getting into the budget process, so that's something that starts internally. We actually break the budget into 2 different parts. We have both a capital budget that funds your larger items, things like a road reconstruction project, major repairs to city facilities, replacing city equipment. And then we have the operating budget, which funds more of your day-to-day expenses, things like salaries, electric bills.
Pens, papers,
Yes,
things like
yes,
that.
exactly. Things that don't last for more than a year. Yes. So, we start with the capital budget first. That starts off with a request from all of the departments. All of the departments submit their requests in priority order, so we can see what is the most important to that department, what their most pressing priority is, and then going on down to their least important priority as they see it. And then typically myself and the mayor will sit down with each department head. We'll go over their requests, why they've requested certain things. We'll talk about it, and then ultimately try to develop a proposed capital budget that matches the amount of money that we have available. And some years that's more difficult to do than others.
It is. Well, and we were talking about that because with the priorities of each department, we always have more capital needs than we have available money. So by having the departments prioritize those, we can better kind of whittle things down where we need to. The other thing that we do, you, me, and the department heads, is we talk about alternatives. Rather than getting, let's say a new vehicle for inspection, do we have the possibility of having a vehicle already in fleet that maybe has some life left in it, but that doesn't quite meet the needs of what its original intention was? Are we able to work around that? Are there other funding sources rather than providing a capital budget item? Is there the possibility of getting a grant through another program or even private fundraising? A lot of the things that we do, Plover River Crossing is going to be a good example of that. There's a city contribution, but a big chunk of that is going to be private donations. So we look at alternatives to, just straight out buying a new something or other. And I think that's important for the public to know too, because we don't just spend money like we're, whoo, make it rain. We always try and provide as much of the need that we can through all of our available outlets. Let's talk about operation, because operational budget, that can vary from year to year depending on what the cost of living increases are in our net new construction. Talk about that.
Sure. So our operating budget is very restricted. We have very strict limits from the state. They limit any increase in the total amount of taxes that we collect for operations to the amount of net new construction. And basically what that means is that is the amount that our property tax base has grown due to new construction only. So it doesn't include if the value of properties go up based on market changes. So typically that's anywhere from 1.5% to 3% per year, and that is the amount that we can increase our levy for operations. So what that allows for is really, it just allows for us to keep up with inflation, to do some very basic things in terms of providing some annual cost of living adjustments to our employees, handling some of the cost increases that any organization has. But unfortunately, it doesn't really give us a lot of flexibility beyond just meeting our needs and meeting those cost increases.
Yeah, no, there sure isn't a lot of flexibility. And it's, another way to look at this, we've had some very good years. The last couple of years, we've done pretty well with net new construction, with some of the buildings and businesses that have gone up, Skywards World Headquarters, Delta Dental, the Century Insurance Building, even the apartments that are going up. That all counts towards net new construction. So we've had some pretty good years, but there's also been some pretty lean years. And if we have 1% increase in net new construction, but the cost of living goes up even 1.5%, we have to keep our employees compensated. We have to pay for the things that we normally buy through the office, those pens and papers that we were talking about. All of those things go up 1.5%, but you can only increase your spending by 1%. You're behind the 8 ball already. And in some of the cases, employees are getting a 2 or 2.5% increase because of cost of living and what have you, and you still have that 1% that you're able to spend. Well, you're losing money. So we've been whittling away at that piece of meat for a while. People often talk about, we're trimming bone. Well, we've trimmed bone already. We've been in that situation. So it's important to know that, and that growth is important. Some people mix up growth with urban sprawl. We do our very best not to hit sprawl levels, but growth is a thing that is absolutely necessary and vital for a city to survive. If we don't grow, we don't have the money to spend, and we will wither and die. We certainly don't want that. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you see in the coming years from the treasurer's viewpoint?
Well, I think that operating budgets are going to continue to be a challenge, and like you said, there is the issue of sort of whittling away at budget flexibility over time, where we have 1 or 2 bad budgets, and maybe we can find some solutions, we can find line items that maybe have a little cushion in them, we can find places where we've maybe erred a little bit more to the side of caution, where maybe we can be less conservative. But over time, and especially with the levy limit formula based on new construction, the concern is that you get to a point where you've run out of options.
Right.
And where the easy solutions are things that you've already done, and now you have to look at something that you really don't want to do, but that you have to do just based on the situation with the operating budget. So certainly that is something that we're doing everything that we can to avoid that. We're always looking for ways to either increase revenue or reduce expenses to try to put that off for as long as possible. But it is definitely a long-term concern that our current formula with the state really is not sustainable long-term.
Sure. And, even during the capital budget, we offer opportunities for the general public through their alderperson to put in requests. Maybe their street is bad or their alley, or they want to see an enhancement to the park system, whatever it happens to be. Those opportunities exist throughout the year, but more importantly now, because we've already presented the capital budget, looking for approval in October, and we'll present the operational budget here in just a couple of weeks. If someone has a question about budgets or where we spend our money or why we spend the money that we do, how can they contact your office?
So they can contact me directly. My phone number is 346-1574, or send me an email, cladick@stevenspoint.com.
Okay, and that's available at stevenspoint.com or through the mobile app. We also have a generic contact the ComptrollerTreasurers Office if you forget the cladick at stevenspoint.com email address. The phone numbers are also available on the website, or you can contact your alderperson and express your concerns or desires to them. So, is there anything else that we need to know about the budget this year that maybe the general public should be aware of? How much money are we spending? How's
Okay,
that?
well, we're spending about $26 million for the operating budget.
Okay.
And then we also have put more money into capital projects this year. So we're going to be spending about $7 million on capital projects.
And a big chunk of that's going to be roads.
It is. And I do want to point out that over the last 5 years, we've actually doubled the amount of money that we spend on roads. So that has been a priority. Certainly our roads are not in the condition that we would like them to be in, and it's going to take some time to catch up, but that is a priority that we are putting more resources into addressing.
Absolutely. And one thing before we go that I wanted to express or maybe stress is that not every dollar that we spend is going to be something you personally want. But we have a city of almost 26,000 people, and we are charged with the duty of providing services and amenities for all of those people. So just because I don't like something doesn't mean we shouldn't spend money on it. And just because you don't like something doesn't mean we shouldn't spend money on it. So you need to be a little bit patient and a little bit more understanding about how we spend our money. Of course, make your voice heard. Nobody wants to stifle anybody. Make your voice heard. Let them know what your thoughts are. And every year we go through this process. I would love to see more people participate in the budget, as I'm sure Corey would, and everyone at City Hall, really. And if you have questions, contact the ComptrollerTreasurers Office. And I think that's going to be a wrap. So thank you very much for joining us again with the Comptroller Treasurer. Corey, thanks for joining us, and thanks for everything your office does.
All righty, thank you.